Okay, hello, welcome everyone. We'll just give everyone a second to jump online. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're so excited to have this incredible panel with our three experts. We have Zoe, Mandy, and Nina. So if you're joining us today, I'd love for you to just type in the chat box, let me know where you're tuning in from, whether you've joined any of my events before, whether you've been referred by one of our panelists. I'd love to know where you're coming from, how you got here. Yeah, and we'll just give everyone a second just to really arrive into the space today before we get started. Now, if you want to what do you call it? I was going to say unvideo yourself. If you want to put your videos on, let me know who you are. This is a very informal, it's a very intimate conversation. We will be we will be asking people just to mute themselves as we get started, and then throughout the conversation, as we have an opportunity for questions, we'll be bringing you guys on as well. So put your videos on, wave, let me know who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get started in just a little bit. I can see some comments coming in from Bundaberg, have done a few activations. I love it, beautiful. Thank you for joining. Steph, nice to see you again. Sneha, nice to see you online. And I can see a few others with their videos off as well. From Geraldton, Fremantle. I love it. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Multidimensional Awakening panel discussion. I put this event together today because I really have been recognizing some of the amazing work that our our Origin Activation community members have been doing. And so really today, the spotlight is on these experts. It's not about me today. It's really about highlighting what these members of the community have been doing. They've been out there for the last few years, creating waves and impact in their community. And these three panelists that I've chosen for today's event are really some of the most incredible, most inspiring people that I know. For years, like Zoe, Nina, I think it's been at least 4 or 5 years, have been just so diligently, working in the background all day, every day, running their own activations, doing the work. They've invested in themselves. They've obviously all been mentored by me. And now they're out there doing incredible things in the world. And if anything, I want you guys to know that what they're doing is so possible for you guys as well. And so I don't want to give too much away just yet, but I'm going to be asking each of these panelists to share their journey about where they started, which for a lot of them is exactly where you guys are right now, and how far they've come since then. And Mandy as well, who's been working with me for just the last 2 years, has also been absolutely smashing it in her own way with her business. She's doing amazing work in the corporate space at the moment as well. So we're just going to go one by one. I'll just call each panelist to the stage. I'll get them to introduce themselves, and then I'll get each one to just give a little bit of a background and story about who they are. So just to start with, can each of you give me just a short bio about yourself before you launch into your big story? So Zoe, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. Really honored to be here talking with you today. So thank you for holding space with me. So short bio, I am a multidimensional meditation teacher, learned through Origin Activation with Isha. I hold a weekly class with my community in Perth, Australia. And I've also created a deck of oracle cards called the Angel Numbers Pocket Edition Oracle Deck, which is just about helping so many of us who are awakening right now and helping us to connect with our guides.
Beautiful. Thank you, Zoe. Nina, why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nina, and I started with Isha like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And now what I'm doing is I'm running my own business. really helping transforming lives for people and clearing out whatever has to be cleared out. And we're actually attuning to who they really are, coming back home. I call it always coming back home because it is a coming home. So what I started with meditation classes as well, multidimensional meditation classes, galactic meditations, then running activations, monthly activations on every gateway. When Isha left Perth, I took over her activations kind of. I got asked to step up basically, and I did. I listened, and then from there, what did I do? I started with energy healing, just one-on-one sessions, and now I'm running really programs for people where we have them in a 4-month container and really change their entire experience of their life, of the reality they are perceiving, connecting them to who they are, connecting them to their guides. Yeah, so that's basically me in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Mandy.
It is so, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. It is so great to be here. And I was just really moved listening to both of you guys basically like bios. Extremely excited to be on this panel. And maybe not surprising, you know, when I share a little bit more of my history, this world is in a way still very new to me. So everything that I've been doing has been very much under mentorship. And it's been very recent that I've actually like had the clarity and the wherewithal to like bring this into my business in a more forward or clear messaging perspective. And I think when you verbalize something, it crystallizes that as reality for you. And so, I mean, that's been very recent for me, even though Isha's help within starting 2 years ago this month, really, because we signed up in December, has been like so life-changing. So I was a practitioner. I'm prior military. I'm the oldest of 5 girls. I'm currently.
Can we not launch into a story just yet?
Sure thing.
Yeah. I love it. Getting a bit ahead. Okay, so I just wanted a short bio just to start you off. So we've got Zoe and Nina who are in Perth, Mandy who's in the United States. I also just want to give an acknowledgement to Jody who's here today. I haven't asked her to be a panelist, but she's just as incredible as these 3 that you're hearing from today as well. If you want to give a little wave. Next time we have a panel, we'll definitely get Jody and some of our other facilitators up on the stage as well. Okay, so now that we've heard the bios from everyone, I just want to now circle back to Zoe. Zoe, I would love to hear, and again, don't give us all the story all at once. Just start with where you were when we first met. Tell us a little bit about where you were in your life and your spiritual practice, and what actually led you towards wanting to explore this multidimensionality.
The answer was there was no spiritual practice. I didn't have one. I wasn't aware of this world. I hadn't been raised with it. I didn't even have friends who were very spiritual. I had just moved to Perth. I guess I understand it now as my intuition, or even my guides giving me guidance. But back then I just assumed that I liked the look of Perth, and so therefore felt the need to move to Perth. And when I did, I stayed with my aunt. And for anyone who knows Perth, the hills in Perth is lots of energy there. And being someone who wasn't spiritual, I had no idea of this until I moved there. And once I did, I had energies coming to me thick and fast, and I had no way of understanding what was happening. So I felt very unsure. I felt very scared, to be honest, and frightened. And it wasn't until one of the girls that I worked with, who had been coming to Isha's meditations, said to me, "Oh, you should come and give it a try. Like, she'd probably know like what you're feeling." I disclosed to her, an experience that I'd had at my aunt's house. And so yeah, I went to my first meditation with Isha, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't think I was going back. I thought, these are not my people. I have no idea what any of this is, and I'm not sure I want to like open this jar. But by the next week, I was itching to get back. Those energies just weren't going to let me go anywhere else. So I went back, and thankfully, working with Isha, I began understanding what these energies were, and also how to connect with, to move, to manipulate, I guess, for lack of a better word, the energy that was coming to me.
Beautiful. So I don't want to jump too far ahead just yet. We will get to the how and, you know, all of that in a second. Now let's jump to Nina. Nina, where were you in your life and what led you towards wanting to do this work?
Well, I was spiritual already, so I was playing with things. I was a Reiki degree level 2 I had. And then how I found you was through the very first time I came was to a Lionsgate activation. And I always felt like I kind of knew things, but the people around, I was looking for someone to help me, but all the people I found, it felt like, nah, there is something not right. Like what they know, I know already. I wanted someone I can learn from. And then I came to your Lionsgate activation, and you were talking a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And then we had the activation, and what really happened was, like, I had, like, you know, I will never forget it. Like, I was in the universe looking down at my feet, like floating around, and I saw the earth, and the next second you said that, and I'm like, what the heck, you know? And then there was like, I connected in that meditation or that activation to my grandma who had passed away. So I was very close to her. It was a very, very transforming activation for me, and very, like, I had never ever experienced something like that before, even though I was playing with Reiki and I was doing things, you know, but that was just, yeah, next level, and I couldn't even put words into it. And then I went and we had at the end you were asking, you're like, oh, do you guys want to share? And I'm like, nope. I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't put it into word. I didn't say a thing, and went home, and I'm like, what the crazy heck? Yeah, it was crazy. And then I went onto your webpage and I saw that you offered meditation classes, and I'm like, I gotta go back there. So I went back and for a meditation, and when was it? Obviously August. And then I did one meditation, and then I dropped out a little bit again. And then from the next year, I don't know which year it was, but in the beginning of January, I'm like, okay, this is it. I commit. I go to every Friday meditation now. Like, something inside of me just told me I have to do that. And then it didn't take long from there when we worked one-on-one together. And what got me to that, I don't even know. I just knew I have to do it. There was the activation, yes, it was mind-blowing, but it wasn't the point that I said, oh, I have to do it. There was something inside of me that told me I have to do it. And I was freaked out. I was scared, you know, I was so scared, but I had to do it. Like, there was no way around it. So yeah, and then I signed up and we start working closely. One of the best decisions of my life.
I love it. All right. So, and we will deep dive a little bit into what happened after that for you as well. Mandy, let's go back 2 years to when you and I first connected.
You don't want me to go back to my sisters again? Just kidding. Okay, so when we first connected, so I'm in the US, and I had an office I was already utilizing trance states, which kind of sounds funny to even say it now, but I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I had a yoga background, and I just found my way into this work. And similar to what Zoë and Nina shared, it was like, I got this, at some point I realized I needed to do that work for my life for sure. And so I left my corporate job. I just sent an email about this today. I just abandoned it kind of on the spot and started full-time. What I was only doing part-time was helping people utilizing trance states and to heal trauma, etc. And I had this big, high-rise, beautiful, windowed office on the 42nd floor of the biggest building in Seattle downtown, so Seattle, Washington. And I'd been working there for years, and I was doing a lot of great work, but there was something that was still, it's like I was providing transformations for others that I had still not fully experienced myself. And so it was like this part of my own experience was locked away. And I honestly, by that point, had still not even experienced self-love for the first time. And I had some transformational experiences in the spring of 2022. I had my first experience with self-love there. And around Lionsgate of 2020, excuse me, I basically went down this deep rabbit hole on the internet learning about 5D consciousness and multidimensionality for the first time. I mean, I had almost but abandoned my work. Like, I was deep down a rabbit hole in 2020. And then 3 or 4 months later, after all this discovery myself, I get a postcard in the mail at the Columbia Tower office. And it had arrived like a week before something, but when I got it, it was early November, so just after Halloween. And it was from Isha. And I didn't know who Isha was, but I had already been, like I said, I was like, oh, I'll get to work later. I was seeing clients, but things weren't super busy. And I was like taking all these courses and finding everything I could about multidimensionality and 5D consciousness, because I was like, it was speaking to me, like, I have to learn more about this. And I opened the postcard, and on the back it had Isha's, origin activation stuff. And it says a picture of her, and it says, "Your multidimensionality awakening expert." And I was just like, is the universe like literally just like going tap, 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 hello? It felt like it was literally like a postcard from the universe. And I brought the postcard home. I was very excited. And I came to my husband, and I was already doing extremely high ticket coaching one-on-one with somebody. It was my second year. And so I knew that he wasn't going to be like understanding or thrilled in any way, nor did it make any sense to me why I would pursue more conversations with somebody who could help me, which I knew was probably likely to be at some capacity, like one-to-one. And I warned David, and I don't think he understood what I was warning him of. I was like, there's something in this postcard for me, and I'm going to need to have this conversation. And I don't know what it's going to entail or require of me, but I'm going to have it. It's important that I do. You know what I mean? He was just like, probably like, what are you even talking about? And we met. And we met twice, and it was very clear to me from early on, the promises that Isha made about like what was possible or exactly what I was craving, like so much. And her like conviction and certainty about, this not really being like a long-term play for mentorship, like something that we would just continue for years and years and years, but was really about creating freedom for me. That was just, I mean, like, I knew it was a yes already, but those were some of the reasons why it made so much sense. So we began working together at the very, very end of 2020, and we are just concluding that 2 years worth of work now. And there's a lot more of that story too. But that's how we met and how I started.
I love it. And we will get into that. Okay, I think the first obvious question that I would like each of the panelists to answer is, what does multidimensional actually mean to you? I mean, for somebody who, like, for example, you, Zoe, for where you were back then, or even Nina, like, it was all just bollocks, right? I mean, it was all just weird, crazy, like woo woo, and so, yeah. So if you're speaking to that version of yourself who had no idea what this was, didn't know anything about it, what can you say about multidimensionality, and how would you define that for that person back then? Zoe, if you want to go first again.
If I was referring to myself, then the way I would describe it to me is, you don't realize how much you're sort of following the herd, if that makes sense, until you start exploring this side of yourself, until you start working with others who have already worked through this side of themselves. So when I first came to you, I had no idea about these deep aspects of myself, these aspects that were really just crying to come out. And until we started that work, until we started working through those layers, I would have just kept going, the same way that everyone does, being part of that herd. And now I think dimensionality to me is really that I am in choice about everything now. I have this whole new way of thinking. I have a whole new way of living. I have a whole new community that has opened up to me. I have, a whole bunch of new energies that have opened up to me. And by energies, I mean guides. I mean like speaking to family members who have crossed over, I mean, it's just such a more connected way of experiencing this 3D life.
I love that. Beautiful. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or does that feel like a complete definition for now?
These guys will probably say something and I'll think, oh yeah, that's really what I was trying to say. But yes, no, I'm all right.
All right, Nina, what's your version of what multidimensional?
I'm thinking, you know, like I find it really hard to put it into words. You can put it into words, and you can bring an explanation to people and to myself. If I think I'm talking to myself, then, you know, like I can kind of bring an explanation to myself back then. But it's really hard to understand if you don't experience that. It's something you need to experience to know what it is. But if I would try to explain it to me, then I would say there are all these aspects of yourself and you don't have any clue that they are there. So you're trying to connect to like maybe spirit guides and you want to talk to them, and all you need to do is to connect to that aspect that already is there with the guides, because I'm there with them all the time. And if I want to understand them, I just have to connect to that part of myself to be there. So, and then bringing that back here into the 3D reality, anchoring it into this life, where I agree with Zoe, then everything changes. Your entire life changes, your frequency changes, your experience changes, everything you have ever thought to be true changes. Like it's so hard to put it into words. I find it really is. It's a sort of experience, you know. And if someone would have tried to explain it to me back then, I don't know if I would have understood. And I really struggle to put it into words, because if it was back me, I would say, just do it, Nina. You will not regret it. You will love it. Just go with it, you know. Yeah, it's really hard to explain, because it's a feeling. It's a feeling. How do you describe a feeling?
I think if we were to bring this to like something just a little bit tangible for someone who's like, I have no idea what she's still talking about. Can you just tell us, who was the first multidimensional being that you ever connected with?
Ashira, yeah. Like he actually, in one, he's my closest, like he's always there. I feel him as well here, right? He's always here. Yeah, it was one of my guides basically I connected with. And, you know, he started guiding me through different things. He started like, you know, teaching me. Like, for example, there was a time, you know, where I felt like healing. I needed to suffer and heal. And he's like, why don't you laugh it off? You know, and like, so he brought a lot of joy into my life. He brought off new ways of thinking, new ways of experiencing my current experience. And so that's, and then everything else came in as well, unicorns, fairies, you know, and everyone brings their own gift. It's something to experience, because like they feel different as well. Like I'm sorry guys, I really struggle. I try my hardest to put it into words.
I think you're doing very well, Nina. I think you're doing very well. Because it's so out there from the five senses that we have, and yet we're trying to have a conversation about something that is so multidimensional, you know.
Yeah.
And Zoe, I want to come back to you and ask you the same question as well. Who was the first multidimensional being that you ever connected with?
I'd say in deep connection, probably Archangel Michael, but prior to that, when I was first starting out, there were a lot of energies that I was connecting to, and I just didn't really know who they were until I, you know, got used to them and started discerning and that sort of thing.
Beautiful. And how did you know it was Archangel Michael the first time?
Oh my gosh, that's a story and a half, but there was no way I couldn't know. He made it very clear.
Yeah. Was it a color? Was it a feeling? Was it like,
no, I'm a very
like a bunch of things?
Visual, so I see a lot of things. Trying to work on my feeling, actually. That's my work at the moment, is feeling things more. But for me, Archangel Michael came in quite strongly visually, and then actually came into my 3D, because I was really struggling at the beginning with a lot of, you flick on the light switch of your light, and then suddenly all these other energies start coming towards the light, and I had no idea how to handle it. And so I called upon Archangel Michael. I'd been told he was a protector, and I said, Archangel Michael, I need you. I need your help. Please protect me. And I remember lying in my bed, like with my sheets up like this, and I was absolutely frozen with terror. And out of the corner of my bedroom, I just saw the sword like flash down through the darkness, and it was just bright, bright light. And I think since I had that experience with him, he started coming more visually through into my meditations, and then slowly but surely, like, I got a much bigger picture of him, to the point where now it's more, when I say I'm working on my feeling, I still feel his frequency. It's more like I have students who feel very, very deeply, and I sort of want to encourage myself to feel more than rely on my sight.
Beautiful. I love that. All right, Mandy. So same couple of questions for you. If you just want to define your version of multidimensionality and share a little bit about your first connection, which I know for you, your first tangible connection was not that long ago.
Yeah, it's just really great to be listening to the conversation as well. I feel like I'm receiving a lot just from being here. So first connection, the first question that the first question though, before the first connection was
Multidimensionality. So just speak a little bit what that means for you.
Of course. So I went to the Air Force Academy. So I've got like they say at the Air Force, my joke has always been at the Air Force Academy, even the English majors get bachelors of science. There's so much astronautical engineering, aeronautical engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering. Like, you're doing so much engineering and so much science and physics and biology and chemistry. And so I have always had a strong sciences background. And more than that, I was raised Catholic in my faith. And I've never identified at all with spirituality. It just wasn't really a part of my life in any way. And so still, I think the experience that I have of this reality feels to me very just practical. And not that spirituality in and of itself is not, but that spirituality, that access to my own spirituality has been a very, very rich addition to my understanding of multidimensionality. And when I first came in contact with the word, what made a lot of sense to me was similar to how I'll describe utilizing trance states in my business for years with people, is it's just a brainwave state. You can be in alpha or you can be in beta. Multidimensionality to me is a description of our universe. So we understand things here as through our five senses typically. But I think, we've all had those little intuitive nudges in our lives, etc. But we've also kind of relegated a whole host of information that's out there that is made of energy, same as physical matter is, but that isn't necessarily discernible by our five senses. We've just stuffed it kind of away into intuition or gut feeling or superstition. And there's so much of this universe that we can't pick up just with our five senses, but it doesn't mean we're not able to connect with that. We have to acknowledge it first. And so to me, the word multidimensionality speaks to the fact that there are multiple planes of existence or aspect dimensions, literally, to our universe, and that our experience of the physical plane is not the only experience that's available even to us. And so when I came across that deep dive in the summer of the word and the idea of different dimensions within our universe, it made perfect sense to me of how we should be able to access that. Like, it felt so practical and very, very interesting, like something I would want to discover. But as I actually followed my nose and followed my own guidance, which comes to us in so many different ways, I've really uncovered some of the sweeter, really reconnection with spirit and with essence and soul of my own humanity that has made my own life so much more free from fear and has given a lot of context to something like a word like faith. So I feel like I really, even though I'll say it right now because Ishik, you kind of alluded to it, like some of those pieces of access to me were really hidden behind the door of like, are you going to step into this mission? Are you going to accept your identity? Are you going to accept who you are and like step away from alcohol? Because I'd had the guidance for years, just don't drink. And so like recently, you know, that's when I've really, really followed that. When I actually said yes to that commitment, to that request, there's been so many other gifts that have unfolded, but that's still very, very much happening. I hope that's a good answer. I can tell I think my first real connection was Gaia. I think that was probably my first classic, because Isha, I don't know if I even ever told you this, but that kind of cataclysmic first experience with self-love, actually I was utilizing, it was the first time in my life I ever dropped acid. And I did that for fun. And I don't do that right now. I'm just sharing that was like, it was kind of just for fun, to be honest, in 2020. And I had a lucid vision, which was not super clear, but I did connect with the red dragon, which we have later met in a more real sense. Like, but I didn't know at the time anything about that.
I actually want to go into this just a little bit. I don't want to go too far down the psychedelic rabbit hole, but I know that some people do come into spirituality through that pathway. And I know you did do that. And I know a lot of your experiences before meeting me, some of the things that you tried, you know, that did open you up to some of these bits and pieces. However, also, you know, if you just want to speak a little bit into your capacity to access them, and it kind of leads into my next question anyway, because you know, the obvious thing that's probably on a lot of people's minds right now is, oh, that's great that these 3 people have done it, but how? Like, if you're sitting there, you know, in the seat and you're not a panelist today, you're probably wondering, well, how can I do this? I want to connect with my guides. I want to do these things. Do I have to go drop acid in order to do that? You know, or are there other ways in order to access these frequencies? So if you can just take that thread and run with it, Mandy, I think there's a lot in there.
Yes. I think it'd be important to share just briefly, like what even the reason. I mean, I was being a bit reckless, and I didn't feel like I had a whole lot. I won't say, I mean, I was very fulfilled by doing my work. I was already in my purpose, but I wasn't able to access certain doors. And I think the reason for that was, for me personally, it was just important for me to actually know firsthand. Like, and when Isha and I first had our conversation, like, she could attest to this. I was like, basically, like, not desperate, but like, I was committed. Like, I would pay any amount of money because I was so tired of hearing truth translated, other people that were more connected to their gut, to their guidance, who had firsthand experience and trusted themselves. And I was like, why can't I have that? And it just felt like I would do anything to achieve it. And so by the time we met, that conversation was very rewarding because it was kind of the answer to that prayer in a way. But if you back up, before I did that acid that day, I mean, to be doing all this healing for other people, but still not be able to really access love for yourself, it felt like living life, you know, I don't know, like in a form of a prison that's only, you know, exists. It was just very, very bleak. And so I was happy to roll the dice. I was like, let's just mix things up. I think there's a lot of stigma about, I am very pro taking the journey without substance by and large. I am not anti-substance, but I have also witnessed so many, especially entrepreneurs in the spaces which are more kind of like on the edges of things and are more willing to try and explore. People give their sovereignty up to then the substance gives them the experience, rather than understanding that in every way you can access everything that's available to you through psychedelics within yourself. And so then you have these peak experiences that no matter what context you do them in, healing setting or for recreation or otherwise, they basically don't have proper integration. No matter what your intention is, it's very hard for these like super high highs that just drop off because they're substance induced. It is very difficult, if not almost impossible, to achieve the same level of integration. And I can definitely speak for that. And what it also is there's a knowing that there's also a knowing that you have kind of like handed that journey over to the substance to control, rather than being fully in your body, fully connected to your whole consciousness throughout the experience that opens up for you. So I think the punchline, and I saw Zoe kind of nodding her head, and Nina too, you know, all of this is achievable without substance. It just doesn't sometimes look as dramatic. And I think there's a lot of curiosity out there, and I don't think that there's anything like wrong with that either. It was obviously a very transformative part of my journey. But I think the reason that I was dabbling at that time, it was less to like heal or explore that. It was more just like for fun, because there was a real lack in my life. And since becoming more absolutely connected with myself, I can truly and honestly say that, you know, even if there's a down day or whatever, like I know there's hope on the other side, because it's just a matter of like moving through that experience and accepting it for what it is. It's a totally different perspective. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
And
I think you touched on quite a few different, you know, threads in that as well. And I think it is important for that conversation to be had, because I think sometimes people try those things because they just don't know that anything else is available. Nina, you want to?
I want to jump onto that, because, you know, like I have my fair share with substances as well. It's been back in Germany, so it's years and years back. And what happened for me is like I connected to things back then I didn't know what I was connecting to, and that this was something, you know, like, which is fine. But now with my knowing from now, I'm actually quite concerned on what I connected to, you know. So because back then I wasn't even able to distinguish, I wasn't able to discern between energies I maybe don't want to connect to. And I agree with you, like you hand everything over to the substance, but you lose control of like, what am I connecting to? Do I want to connect to this? Is this an energy that actually serves me, or is it taking from me, you know? Like, and then I don't have even the proper tools to stay within myself, because I've opened myself up, giving everything to the substance on purpose. So I find that, you know, everyone is like, I'm not here to judge anyone's journey, and if people do that, obviously, you know, there's something on. But for me, I'm very, very happy I was able, or am able, to connect to exactly the same, in the same way, but being able to actually decide who am I going to connect with. And actually, if an energy comes in, I can discern, and I can say, you know what, like, I don't want you here, or like, well, now it's not happening. Like, I'm never connect to any low vibrational frequencies, because I think I'm just too high. But there was a time where I did, and then I could decide, who are you? No, you don't feel good. Like, I'm sending love here, and you're not of a love frequency, so get out of my way. And I think it's very, very important for people to know that you can access that without any substance, and you in a safe way as well. Like, so if you want to access this in a safe way and keep control of your own experience, then I would never ever recommend a substance whatsoever. Yeah,
I think it's an important discussion to have. I mean, there's so much more I could say on this, you know. Wasn't really the intention of today's conversation. I feel like that could be like a whole other like psychedelics and spiritual awakening in and of itself. I think I want to come back to just the main question. You know, when we sort of promoted this event and we sent out all the emails, what we promised was that we would pull the veil on what exactly those methodologies are. So if we go back just a little bit, well, back like 7, 8, 9 years maybe to my journey, I started off with the Merkaba light body activation as the tool that helped me to awaken. after doing that for quite a number of years, I had my first channeling experience. My story is very openly out there. You can go find it on all the podcasts and everything that I talk about. So I won't go too much into that today. And then fast forward a few years later, probably about 2016, I learned a beautiful meditation practice called the inner heart practice. And so those two things really were the key pivotal tools that allowed me to connect without any substances, without any crazy, whatever. It was the most simple yet profound tool and practice that allowed me to actually access everything in my multidimensionality. So as soon as I learned that, particularly that second practice, the inner heart practice, I then started every single day going into my inner heart, then inside my inner heart started activating my light body. And from there, it was like everything opened up. I was connecting with different beings. I was connecting with, Arcturians and sacred geometries and Pleiadians. And I'm like, just anything and everything is kind of available inside of that space. I learned about aspects of self, about who I am as a multidimensional being. I connected with my 5D self, my 9D self. I connected with my starship. There's a lot more in that space, right? And so then what I realized very quickly was I needed to teach what I know to other people. And that's where Origin Activation was born. It was the culmination of the tools and practices that I'd learned, plus a very specific philosophy, the 6 principles of Origin Activation, that allowed me to then teach Zoë, Nina, Mandy, and Jody, and all my other clients. And so because we are really pulling back that veil today, I really want to deep dive into a little bit about what those practices are and hear from each of the panelists how it's actually changed your reality and how it's actually helped you to connect to your multidimensionality. So yeah, we might switch it up a little. Mandy or Nina, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question? I just had to close the door.
Yeah, I was just telling our audience about how I did the inner heart practice, I really haven't spoken about the inner heart practice much in public. I've talked about the Merkaba light body activation quite a lot because it's how I started channeling and all of that. But up until now, the inner heart stuff really has been behind closed doors. Unless you're working with me one-on-one, people haven't had access to it. For the first time ever, I've actually opened up that doorway where people now inside my group program, the 5D Empire, are now just starting to learn it, which is really exciting. But I've never really spoken about it. And so I guess what I want to do is I want to hear from you guys about your experience with that practice, how it's actually helped you, share some stories, let people know what is this crazy multidimensional thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, the inner heart practice. The day I learned it, like I do it still to this day, like every single day it has become my practice. What changed for me is that I started, I already had a few experiences. Like I said before, I saw, like, I'm quite a visual person. So I had visuals before, but then I started really jumping into the inner heart practice and I learned that. And that was really where everything started to come in, like more of my guides, more guidance, connecting to to different aspects of myself, different like my 5D part, my 9D, and you get names even, like it's crazy to think about that, but it's just so true. And how that played out in my like 3D world is I just wasn't bothered anymore. Like my triggers start falling away. There were situations where before I got like work situations, like someone does something. And I remember the first time it was like someone did something. I don't even know what it was anymore. And then I was walking away and I'm like, oh, that usually would have pissed me off. And it didn't. So I wasn't angry anymore, like it just didn't bother me anymore. And I didn't change anything. It just happened. It just like my reality started to change. I started to laugh more. I started to be happier. I started to, and then other things came in, at work as well. Like I learned this practice, and what happened then was I got promoted like 3 times in 1 year. Just like that, bam. And before that, I was working at the same place, and for 2 years I was trying to get a promotion, and I was working hard, and I'm trying, and I'm doing, and nothing ever worked. And then I started looking at myself and really connecting to who I am and connecting to my heart space, connecting to like bringing all the aspects in, because that's where you do it, in your inner heart, like you connect to everything. Things just started to change, like 3 times, nearly tripled my income in 1 year, like for no reason, I learned the practice and I started like vibing in a different space. And that's just like one thing, you know, that's just one thing. And people come into my life, people that are really supportive, you know, like all my friendships have changed. There were friendships like based on trauma bonds, on drama, on, you know, just exhausting. And now I have people in my life who are actually supportive, you know, who say, you know, Nina, I love what you do. It's amazing what you do. And like, it's enjoyable time with them when you spend time with them. That has changed. So all my relationships have changed. My work, well, and now obviously I'm not like, I'm running my own business. So I'm, you know, it just gets better and better and better. So for me, I got to the point where I say, okay, I will never ever stop doing the inner heart practice, because one thing I know for sure, I don't want this magic to stop. I don't want this magic to stop. And the longer I do it, like, it's just getting crazier and crazier, more magical and magical. And it becomes, yeah, it's my life now, you know. It's hard to put into words, because it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful having all these aspects of yourself joined together. Yeah, and enjoying life instead of fighting in life. Yeah, this is how it changed for me. You're on mute, Isha.
Yeah, I can really feel how, yeah, as you're talking about like the energy coming through, like that passion, that heart-centeredness, the magic, you know, is something, the magic is what keeps me going every day as well. And I know you guys, anyone who's ever worked with me, you know that's what lights me up every day. You know, I'm showing up, I'm doing my activations every week, I'm doing my Q&As, I'm teaching people like relentlessly, you know, I'm telling them, drop into your heart, like all day, every day. And it is. And you know, it's one thing to sort of, you know, just talk about the magic, and another to actually experience it, you know. And I think I love that you shared, you know, those little stories, because you had so many wins even just in the first year of, like, you know, with the pay rises. But and I know that's just like a small part of it. You know, the magic is also the fact that you can connect with things that you didn't even know were possible, right? Which we'll get to a bit more as well. And I think, you know, I think I can speak for all of us OA coaches when I say, we're not just teaching this stuff, we're embodying it. You know, I mean, all the magic that I've been able to teach you guys, I'm very transparent that I also receive the benefits myself, and things are happening like in my own life, like behind the scenes, like while all of this is going on. And so I think there really is a conversation there of, you know, yes, it's one thing to go and meditate and, you know, obviously take that time out for yourself, but then we see the impact of that in reality. And I think that's where sometimes people don't always fully understand, because sometimes people ask me, oh, but like, what am I going to gain from this? Or what are, you know, if I sit there and do this inner heart practice every day, I sit there and do activations every week, what is that going to do for me? And I think you've just given a beautiful, you know, example of just some of the things that can happen when you commit to that practice, right?
Yeah.
Zoe, sounds like you have something to say.
Oh no, I was just for the group. I mean, Isha's not wrong. Like, what do you have to gain from this? Literally everything. There's no doubt about it. It just opens up not even one world to you, multiple worlds, right?
Yeah, I love it. I literally have a text message, like all these messages are coming in, like while I'm facilitating in live time, that I'm going to be on Channel 10 next year. like it's happening as we speak. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not joking about the magic, guys. The magic is real. All right, Zoe, why don't you share your experience with the practice and how it's helped you?
It's funny, when you first said it prior to Nina speaking, the first thing that came up for me was doorways. And then Nina said it so perfectly, that all these opportunities, and that's literally what the inner heart has been for me. I feel like by accessing my inner heart, not only do I have all these doorways to experience sort of wider consciousness with, but also all these opportunities come by just taking that step through that doorway. So it really is just such an amazing tool to be able to do so many things. I think that's the hardest part about origin activation, trying to describe to people what it is because it's literally so many things, and it helps you connect to so many different aspects of yourself, gives you the tools to be able to do so many things for others, that it's really hard to sort of define it, because it is so many different things. I mean, it's, you know, using your inner heart to connect to your aspects, as Nina said, or your guides, or even work on yourself in a multidimensional way. So working through past lives, breaking soul contracts, or things like that, you know, all these things that pertain to you in your soul, but then also be able to work on your body, your physical body, your 3D body, this human form that we're in on a cellular level. Like, it's unreal. And then to connect with other energies, other beings as well, and learn from them, go to other planets and experience their way of life. Like, it's just so many things that it's so hard to define it all into one. And I think that's where, when you're starting out, it can be sort of you're unsure about whether or not you should get into it, because it's so undefined. There's literally no limit. There is everything available to you. You are literally stepping into this multi-dimensional version of yourself where everything is available to you. And that is literally it, everything. There's nothing that's not. So whatever you can imagine, it's even beyond that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. You know, I think you've described it probably better than I can sometimes, because, you know, it's like, it is that element of, it's so much more than that, you know. And I think sometimes, you know, so, like all of us in some capacity, we're coaches, we're mentors. Nina, you work with, you know, more in that sort of business space. Mandy, you're in the corporate space as well. And I myself for years have positioned myself as a coach to entrepreneurs. And so people often come to me and they say, but, you know, will this help me make more money? Will this help me manifest clients? Will this help me grow my business? Blah, blah. I'm like, that's just like a tiny blip in what I care about. You know, I'm like, yeah, if you want all of those things, go get all those things. And then let's go journey to the stars. Like, that stuff to me is just like, it's a given. Like, just how Nina, you know, you just got 3 pay raises like that. I mean, did we sit there and have sessions around in manifesting pay rises? No, of course not. We barely talked about it, you know, but the shift in frequency is what created that. You know, I mean, same with Mandy. You know, she's been landing some amazing corporate contracts, and, you know, it's not really something that we sat there and spent a lot of time like, oh, I'm going to visualize this person or this type of thing. And, you know, it kind of happened. And when it did happen for Mandy, it was at a price point that was even higher than what she proposed, you know. And so these things just kind of have landed in these beautiful ways. And so I think you've really captured the essence of that, Zoe, in that I mean, to me, this is life. Like, this is the way that we get to live. And it honestly, it breaks my heart that everybody doesn't know this. I think everybody needs to know this. I think everybody needs to know how your heart is connected to the field of consciousness when you have access to that through this specific practice. And I'm sure there's other practices out there as well. I don't believe that there's just one practice in the world. I think there's, you know, many paths can lead home. But for me, this is the one practice that has really been the game changer, because I just saw everything. When I got it, you know. I mean, it's just like my life and my spirituality and my business and everything is like rolled together in this one giant miracle of reality that I still pinch myself. 7 years of being in coaching, and I still pinch myself every day. Like, how did I get to do this? How did I get to live a life that is so freaking amazing that I get to do this every single day? You know what I mean?
It's also not a case of well, it is. There are other modalities out there, right? Like you said, there are lots of paths that lead home. I think, and I remember telling you this, Isha, when I was doing my Reiki training. I love Reiki. I highly recommend it. Go out there and do your Reiki training. It's such a great way to get like a tangible experience of energy, and also to begin, if you feel drawn to like helping others, such a great way to get you on your path. But what origin activation is to me, in comparison to all these other modalities that we've all paid money for, that we've all tried, this is just 2.0. This is like the newest version, right? This is the direct connection, the direct line. You get results so much faster, information so much faster. And it's not that these other modalities won't lead you home, it's just that it might take you longer.
That's true.
Agreed.
That part I will testify to, yes.
Yeah.
I think many parts do get you there, but I definitely think this is the most accelerated that I've certainly come across. And I see it. I mean, I see it in you guys, you know, I'm very open with my journey, like what took me about 7 years to figure out. And I didn't have the same level of guidance as what I offer to my clients. You know, I give you guys weekly activation, a lot of support, there's Q&As, there's a lot sort of available. I really didn't have that for myself. And so for me, it took me about 7 years to really sort of dial this in. And then I watched you guys do it in like 2 years. Mandy, within the first, 3 to 6 months, was like fully connected. She's starting to get it, like, and so I feel that there's this acceleration happening. And part of it is the global acceleration. I think that's just across the board. The awakening itself, the ascension is accelerating. And so I think that definitely plays a role. But also I think, when you have a certain group energy that's already built, like for example, like I'm seeing people joining the 5D Empire now, and there are people who joined less than 2 months ago who are having the types of experiences that you guys didn't have 6 months in. And so I'm seeing things get faster and faster and faster, and there's a momentum that's getting built up in this space because of this collective work that everybody's doing. And so I think there is that element of trusting in that process, knowing that this is going to accelerate the journey for you, but then also recognizing that because you've chosen to do it, it's going to accelerate it even more for the next person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can all agree. We see that with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know, Zoe, a couple of your peeps are, some of your referrals are sitting here in the space today as well. And I see, I'm just going to mention this, Kat, I hope you don't mind, but I see, so Kat is one of Zoe's clients who's now also in the 5D Empire as well. And I know, we're sending you so much love. And I see the beautiful pictures that Kat posts on her Facebook all the time. And they capture so beautifully the essence of the work that we do. And I wish, like, there's a part of me that, wishes I could paint digitally as well as you, Kat, because it has been my dream to take these beautiful images and frequencies and transmit them in such a beautiful way that you do. Kat, if you just want to like pop a link to your page or wherever you post them, I would love people to see your amazing pictures, because what happens is Kat goes to Zoe's group and then she posts these amazing images that she draws of like Galactic Federation and the beings that she connects with. And so I see how the work that the legacy that I started 7 years ago is now showing in my clients, my clients. It's incredible to witness that. And it's just, I feel like this movement is so much bigger than us. And I think that's what I keep coming back to as well. It's like, it's one thing to sit there and do the practice for ourselves. Obviously, it's great to have pay rises. It's great to have, these magical experiences. But then I see the ripple effect of that on the wider community. And there is no greater joy for me than to see that happening at such incredible levels. Thanks, Kat. I'm sure our people can go and follow you on there. So, Mandy, I'd love to jump back over to you now. Same question. Tell us a little bit about your experience with the inner heart practice, how it's helped you, some of the things that you've learned.
I will just, it's kind of like where to start as well. I was noticing how almost like a longing, because I think Nina and Zoe's description reminded me of each other a little bit, and my experience has been very different, and I'm kind of like, oh, I don't feel that way, like I almost want to feel that way. But I think the reason that I came to it has never been to explore, and so my experience of it has been more like local to me, especially in this life. And I think it's been a bit slow to expand, almost like to take off and ignite. And I can share, I have had really, really big difficulties with building boundaries because of my sense of honor, and like a confusion about that self-sacrificial love with like what that means when that love is not being returned, and what my real calling is in this life. And this practice specifically has helped me on a number of different levels. One, with discernment, Two, with actually understanding in a very visceral and visual way my energetic body, so that I have a very, very clear understanding of the fact that I get to choose where I let people in, and I decide and delineate where those relationships live within my field and what kind of space I actually physically want to be holding in my energy field for other people, especially people that are not clients. Because with clients, it could be a bit more clear, but like once I understood the nature of my own energetic field, which didn't come in until late this summer. And Isha, you and I talked about that over the WhatsApp. That was a super exciting day for me because I never expected that to even happen. We hadn't even been talking about it. But the other story that I would tell about like my experience of this, it's like some of these interactions with interdimensional or like other dimensional beings and energies, it's almost just been by necessity. It's like because I have not been looking for that. I've been seeking so hard and keeping my nose down so hard to what I'm doing here. And I have a greater understanding and compassion for myself now that I have met those other aspects of myself and other dimensional beings that can provide context to why exactly I'm like that. And it makes a lot more sense, and gives me like almost like freedom just to continue down that path. For me personally, I realized a few years ago that the number 444 has been the number 4 has been this theme throughout my business. And I actually see Zoe, you're smiling, and I don't know why you're smiling, but like, I don't think we talked about this story because it's happened since I left Australia, but like, this story is incredible. I got home from Australia and I just had like my first real auditory connection with Ashtar after a year and a half. I've been doing this work and I like hadn't kicked the alcohol yet, wasn't following the guidance. So it was like these aspects were still obscured from me. I'm like, that's not a big deal. I can have a beer every now and then. The guidance was like, don't drink. So I wasn't really fully believing in the gravity of like what's available to me. And so like I wasn't listening, so I wasn't asking, so I wasn't receiving. And when I made like a really firm decision, I had that first contact. It was like undeniable. It was life-changing. And then I got back home and I had already the constellation of the Pleiades had already been in my awareness like so much. I actually have the Pleiades tattooed on my arm from 12 years ago, or 10 years ago on 2012. And I always thought it was because of XYZ story I told myself. Oh, because I have 4 sisters, it's 7 sisters. We have 7 people in our family. I got it on Valentine's Day. It's for my family. Well, it is for my family, but I think it's for my star family. And when I got back home from Australia, I was like, I want to understand more about what this meaning is for me. Look it up on Google. The Pleiades star system is so I am writing a book right now. It has the frequency of 4 running all through it everywhere. My company had 4 values. It had 4 pillars. It had 4 tools. It had I've known this for a couple years. The Pleiades is 444 light years away from planet Earth. And when I reduce the date that I actually got this tattoo, it's February 14th, 2012, which also reduces to 444. I left my work that day. I had a wild hair in my head and I said, I think I'm going to go get a constellation tattooed on my body today on Valentine's Day. And I peeled in right before they closed. And it was just like, that was 10 years ago. My company is called Palladium Mind. Like, it's just, and I kind of mixed up the language, like, and I didn't, somebody else had to point that out to me. So I got to learn a lot about myself very recently, about where I came from in this incarnation, like why exactly I'm here, why exactly I chose to come here, what the gifts were that I brought with me to fulfill that mission. And I'm just, the more that you, I think, step into an appreciation of that bigger picture, the more you just feel a participation in all of that. So it's really, when people fight against their own ego, I think this practice just really has made it so obvious why that's unnecessary. Because when you understand where you really sit in the bigger picture and you have an embodied experience of that, there's no more need to try to prove yourself. And so, like, full circle, this journey has really been, it's not, I've almost explored like against my will almost. Like I've needed that information in order to feel fully confident in what I was doing. And I've held myself back a lot in business because I wasn't fully connected to my mission, which is of most importance to me. But if I didn't have an accuracy on the mission, I knew that it was really, in a sense, self-serving. And I do think that we're here to like fulfill our desires as well. But for me personally, mission and my duty and like what I decided to do, it's just such a core aspect of who I am that it was very difficult for me until I had greater context to feel totally at peace to just full throttle. Because now, as Isha and I were talking earlier this week, like in one of our final meetings together within the container, this is the last thing I'll say on this topic. It's just, I think with a number of different understandings that have really come into place, I feel completely at liberty to just pour gasoline on everything and like take it as big and fast as possible, because I understand now for sure it's in service to a bigger picture. Whereas before, I think I was like still teetering and unsure about like, am I serving myself alone or am I serving the bigger picture too? Because that was really important to me.
I think you've touched on so many points, and I know when we open up the Q&As a bit later on, I'm sure people are going to, ask you to elaborate on some bits and pieces. We've heard from all of our panelists, right, about their journeys. We've discussed some of the key tools, that we've talked about the inner heart practice. We've talked about the light body activations, what they've been able to do as a result of that. There's one question that I want to address, and I think this comes up every time we do any anytime people have opportunities in front of them that are about spiritual growth and things like that, and it is related to a very 3D thing called money, right? And the one thing I want to flag is that every single panelist didn't have the money to do this when they first started. And I want to give each panelist an opportunity to share their journey. So Zoe, Nina, and Mandy have all worked with me at different levels, and at different price points, and we, they can disclose as much of that as they want to. But the commonality in all three of them is that none of them had the money at the time, right? And they all freaked out about it, and yet they all still did it anyway. And so I think the one thing I really want to speak into is how each of these ladies have been brave enough to follow their guidance, even when it seemed practically impossible. And I'd love to hear their perspective. And I want each of you panelists to pull the veil on how easy it wasn't, because there were times, like, let's be honest, each of you came to me like practically crying at some point because it was really difficult. And I think it's important to speak to that aspect of it, as well as all the, the positive aspects as well. So whoever wants to go first, just jump in and let the audience know what it was really like to take those brave actions.
I can go first on that. I think because I had already been down the road of a lot of high ticket investment. And so when we had our conversation, I kind of was like, I was prepared in a way, but of course it was the biggest level of investment that I had ever committed before. What do I really want to say about this? By that point, I think I've emphasized this a couple of times. I had stepped through so many different experiences that were misaligned that I was unwilling to like go down a road of misalignment again. So when you're talking to somebody that 100% is like, it really does come down to trust, right? Because you choose who you take support from. But when somebody's in front of you and for sure that trust is there for you, there comes a point, I think, where it just becomes so much more painful. And I think I must be quoting somebody else right now, but there's just a point where the idea of not stepping forward in accordance with your guidance is just like absolutely not even an option. And maybe that's just for me too, because I think sometimes things have to be like taken out of my hands before I will, like, I have to learn lessons really hard sometimes. And I think that is changing, and that has already shifted like quite a bit. But I have noticed that in my history. And so when that opportunity presented itself, I was beyond the point of thinking that I needed this. I knew what it was like to live my life without being connected to myself. I was willing to endure like any different difficulty than continuing to do that. And so it really wouldn't have mattered almost. Like, I think I would have had to figure it out. And what I would want to share is that it doesn't have to get to like 11 for you to step into that. And I think a lot of other people take a much more graceful approach. Like, other people will listen to their guidance sooner, as evidenced many times in many of the stories I've shared tonight. Like, there is a way to do that. And I don't feel like the investment, it was approximately $100,000 US. So I'll just share that it was the happiest. I was the bill I love to pay actually the most, in all honesty. Because I knew that it was for myself. This is an investment into what I needed most. And it was like truly nourishing my soul. And I want to share a different aspect of this too. So in a way, when we did that, it wasn't hard to say yes to that. There wasn't an alternative for me, even though there was, I wasn't willing to entertain it. Where it became difficult was I actually was still managing. I was still showing up to the contract that I had previously, which I mentioned earlier. So I fulfilled all my obligations. COVID hit, and COVID was already happening, and I was paying like a really big mortgage lease to my office as well. And I didn't default on any of my loans. I'm still greatly in debt to myself. But the resources showed up when I needed it. I got like some grant from the government I didn't even ask for. Like, it was just crazy stuff. It's fine. No, my life has not changed, and I've done everything that I've wanted. So it's still an exercise in faith and trust, but I can't say I've hardly been inconvenienced by it. It's things that move around in the ether on somebody else's piece of paper. And ultimately, I don't think there is a situation where like the alignment will actually put something that's aligned is not actually going to like put you out of house and home. That's where people were flirting with this idea that maybe it's going to be like that devastating, or this worst case is going to happen, but that's just in alignment. That's not real. And the last thing that I would share is like where it did become difficult is like there were many things mounting at once. And I made this decision in a vacuum. It was the first time I really faced a decision like this where I was actually married and not just engaged or with a boyfriend. So I made this decision without asking my husband, because I'm like, I'm a bad B. Like, I do this through my business. My business pays for this. I don't ask anybody's. I'm like, I realized like a few months in, $8,000 a month is kind of a big deal. My business isn't covering this right now. So like I had to tell David, everybody knows this story, but like, we agreed that wouldn't happen anymore. But there were months where that gave me an opportunity to purge all fear related to the contingency of I actually can cover this bill, so I'm safe. Like having that financial commitment on my part really made me step up and choose inner peace at all costs. So for me personally, it was an extremely, like, I have a foundation of absolute just belief in myself and in the guidance that came as a result of like working through those fears, because of the actual objective like size of the bill, if that makes sense. And I know that I would still be carrying remnants of that fear, so I would be manipulatable. Like I faced all of it down, and it's just not, there's nothing that, like, nobody can basically like manipulate or control me externally. Not saying that anybody would want to, but like I am not able to be, I'm just bulletproof in my resolve that it's going to be okay. And some of what happened in the early months there really gave me that opportunity as like a side benefit.
Beautiful. I love how open and honest you've been as well. And, you know, with the price points and everything as well, because yeah, it is a big commitment. And I think you of all people have showed, I mean, you've showed up for yourself every time. You know, I know it wasn't easy for you, but at the same time, you trusted that and you followed that. You're getting grants out of thin air. Things are shifting and changing, you know. And if I can mention this as well, it's not like you guys were, you know, living in poverty or whatever. You still like bought 2 pieces of land and are building a new house, and like there's a lot of other kind of things happening for you as well. Like while you've made this investment, other things are moving and shifting and expanding in different ways. So I love that you mentioned like nothing has really sort of changed for you in your lifestyle as a result of that.
Yeah, I thank you. And I just only wanted to interrupt accidentally because I think it could be easy to take away too that we were somehow like swimming in wealth as well. And we kind of have been leaping in faith because that property was also very guided, like ridiculously guided as well. So it's definitely been hard, but thank you for thank you for like just mentioning that other component of it. And yeah,
I guess
validating that.
where I see is like I see expansion, you know, and I know the whole backstory to the property and all the alignments, and I was around for all of the, you know, conversations behind it, and you know, getting all excited with the numbers and everything, and
the eagles and the
oh yeah, there's a lot of WhatsApping back and forth on this. And I loved being on the front lines of your journey in this, because to me, you know, as your coach, I had a front seat to all of this that was going on for you. I had a front seat to your inner challenges. I had a front seat to, you know, all the decisions that you made. I had a front seat to you having this conversation with your partner, like, oh, this feels really guided, we should do this, how are we going to get it? And then you made it happen, right? And I think that's the piece I want to acknowledge the most, is like, it wasn't always easy. There were a lot of miraculous things that happened along the way that were completely unexpected. You know, even like client contracts that came out of thin air, that, you know, were connections that just happened when you weren't even looking for them, or like whatever else that sort of happened in that space. And I think for you, it was watching you step into that alignment that just made me so, I don't know, really proud of you, you know, Mandy. I know I say this to you privately a lot, but I'm so proud of how far you've come, because I still remember the version of you that came to me this time 2 years ago that said, Isha, can you please help me connect with my higher self? And I quietly laughed and I said, Mandy, we'll get you there in 3 months and then some, you know? So
thank you so much for saying that too. And one other thing, Isha didn't know that I didn't talk to my partner, by the way.
No, I had no
that
idea.
was all
I
on
would have
me.
recommended that. I probably would have been like, you know, because I have this conversation quite a bit with, you know, women who want to work with me, and their partners sometimes are just like, oh, we don't know if this is good or not. And normally my recommended pathway is like, let's bring the partner on and like have a conversation. I had no idea that you went and just did this, but we can all laugh about it now. That's the rebel in you, which I love. Zoë, I'd love for you to speak on the financial side of things as well, because I know even with you, we had payment plan after payment plan and like all the things, you know. So I'd love to hear from your perspective the trust and the alignment that you followed to get to where you are.
Yeah. So I had just moved to Perth. I was basically starting my career again from scratch, and I was working for minimum wage in retail. So not only did I wonder where on earth I'd have the energy after work to like sit for a couple of hours and put my energy into something else, but also I just didn't really have a lot of funds available to me to just you know, sort of start throwing it out. I really was living paycheck to paycheck. And yeah, I don't even remember how I made it happen. It just did, because exactly, I think Mandy's like covered it so well, that the minute, in a way, it's kind of a surrender yourself to it. And I think when I surrendered and really felt into it, really felt, is this something I need to do? The signs were so obvious. It was made so clear to me that, yes, Isha is who you need to work with, and yes, you need to do this thing. And once I had that, I think that really sort of like helped me understand that I am so much more divinely guided than I realized, and so much more supported than I realized. And suddenly, after surrendering to that and sort of saying, you know what, it will work no matter what, it just did. Like, it does. What else do you say? It just comes from nowhere. Suddenly you're exactly the same. Suddenly you're getting a promotion, you're getting a pay rise. Suddenly you're not casual anymore, you're on contract. So you've got a larger paycheck coming in more consistently. Or I think I got like so many gifts given of like money from like family and friends. And I'm trying to think of what else. It was a while ago, but it just all seemed to flow. And it didn't even just affect me, because I had a partner at the time and we're still together, but my partner and I, it didn't just affect me, it affected him as well. So suddenly he was getting promotions, or he was getting offered new jobs, and there was more income for him, and we weren't sharing money. But, you know, as I started leveling through Isha's program and you know, wanting to go on to the next stage and that sort of thing, conversations would just come up naturally, where without even having to ask, it was like offered to me. Do you know what I mean? Like my partner was like, you know, we should probably just share an account. Like, my card's about to expire, we should probably just share an account. And then you just naturally have a conversation around, okay, well, how does the money side of things work, or whatever. And suddenly all these like channels of money come through, that you never would imagine until you say yes, until you surrender and you open yourself up to that. Because I mean, really, that's what your support crew, your guides, that's what they need. They need you to show them that this is what you want, that this is what you're doing, and they will make it happen for you. I swear. Like, I'm willing to go down on record with that, because it does.
It's the saying, right? It's like the universe helps those who help themselves. Like, if you're expecting, you know, handouts and not really taking that action, well, the universe isn't going to really think you're serious about it. You know, opportunities get offered to you all day, every day. The question is, do you take them? Even when it's scary, even when you think you don't have time, even when you think you don't have money, even when you feel like you need support. And each of you have just somehow managed to do it. I didn't even know this about the account thing, but I know that, you know, I mean, from my perspective, like, I remember putting on a number of payment plans, and then when you eventually wanted to come to that retreat, like, it was a big amount for you, and like, you know, we made it happen. And I don't think you ever defaulted on anything. You always managed to make it happen. Like, you know, and that's the experience I've had with all three of you, is like, there's always been that level of consistency, because instead of being limited by your resources, like, and I talk about this a lot in my other programs, like the time money matrix, instead of getting caught in that and going, oh, I've only got this much time and this much money, you guys went, well, actually, I'm going to rise up my reality. And suddenly your time money changed. You know, it's like things shifted, things, you know, changed in the matrix to support you, but you had to say yes first, right? I think that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from your message, is that you said yes, and that's why the shift happened, not the other way around.
Correct. And then in hindsight, you never regret it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never once looked back and went, oh my gosh, look at what I could have done with that money now. Absolutely not. I looked back and I went, oh, that was just the most well-spent money I've ever spent. Or that just worked so well that it I'm not going to lie, it's not effortless. Like, it definitely wasn't easy. And coming against those blocks, those limiting beliefs around money or time, like, again, that's just lessons that we all have to go through. But I'm telling you that there is another side to it. You can get through it to the other side. Yeah.
And it starts with you, right?
It starts with you.
Such a beautiful share. Thank you so much. Nina, you've talked about a little bit of yours already. Is there anything else you want to add to that, that conversation?
I think it's very, very clear. You know, and I see that with my clients as well. Like I have this conversation with my people as well when they sign up. But the change always, and this is the most important thing to take away, I think, is it comes from you. People say, oh yeah, I save the money, or I do it. The money needs to come first and then I do it. This is not how it works. This is limiting 3D thinking. You need to say yes first and then invest into yourself, raise your frequency, and the moment you raise it, like money is coming in. Like 3 times promotion in 1 year, tripled my money in 1 year without trying. And when I signed up, I was scared that I could never ever afford a burrito anymore. You know, like, well, I eat burritos because I love my burritos. So I was really scared, you know.
You still eat burritos?
I love. I had one yesterday. So yeah, but it comes from within first. We need to say yes. We say yes to ourselves. And what I found as well on my journey, and you know, like after saying yes to me through your program, I said yes many times in other programs as well, like a lot of business stuff, you know. And I've always been scared. There was like literally the business course I signed up for, like, well, after the first payment, I don't know how it's going to work, but it feels right. So here you are. And then it just works itself out. But I've said yes. I told the universe what I want. And then I jumped in and I did the work. Obviously, I didn't go hiding in somewhere in my backyard and didn't do anything. Of course I show up, and of course I do the work, and of course I do what they tell me. And what you know, if Isha said meditate every morning, I meditated every morning. I did the work. So, and then it showed up. But what we need to learn is really to say yes. And I think it's not a yes to the program. It's not a yes to that person you're coaching. It's actually saying yes to yourself and then building that trust. And it's not even a trust. Yeah, of course you need to trust the coach or the person you're working with, but it's coming back as well to trusting yourself that you've got this. You have got your own back, and you can change it for yourself, like the entire experience. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down, because there's a trust issue with themselves, but it's not resolved if you don't start saying yes first. You always, if it's money, if it's trust, if it's time, it doesn't matter. It all comes once, yeah, you walk over the bridge of fear for the first time.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Guys, there's so many gems. I hope you guys are really, you know, taking so much. I mean, we've got 3 incredible expert panelists who are being very open and transparent about their journeys today, of what they've done, how they've done it. It wasn't easy for them and they all showed up anyway. And what I'm curious to know now is, who here actually wants to know what the next step is and is wondering how you can actually go through this inner heart process and learn these activations for yourself? Is everyone in the audience is kind of wondering, like, yes, I want to do this? Amazing. So here's the deal, right? For the first time ever, these exact practices, including the inner heart, including the stuff that some of my clients have literally paid 6 figures to learn, I am now teaching inside of the 2023 cohort for the 5D Empire. It is the last time I'm ever running this course, and it's definitely the last time I'll ever be running anything at a group format in that price point ever again, especially once my Channel 10 contract goes through. Trust me, I won't have time for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop a link below. It's the annual membership for the 5D Empire. You get 12 months access to the weekly activations, and you also get Q&As. The Q&As are the game changer. Every single week, people, you know, I'm sure people who are in the 5D Empire right now can attest to it. I spend a lot of time personally answering every single question that every single person has. And sometimes that's a lot of them. I'll sit, if there's like an hour worth of questions, I'll answer an hour's worth of questions, you know, because I'm really committed to that group. And it is one of the places, in fact, right now, it's the only place where I show up consistently every single week, more than I do on social media, more than I do in events, more than I do in my free activations. I'm there every single week running stuff and making sure that people get the guidance that they need. So I've popped the link there below. You won't have to pay $8,000 a month. You won't even have to pay 5 figures for the year, it is literally $2222 for the entire 12 months. And we are closing that intake on December 31st. And the reason for that is that because we're introducing now this inner heart meditation into that group program, we need everyone to start together and finish together. I'm sure any of our clients will attest to why that's so important. So there's not going to be anyone joining in March who has to like start all over again. There's not going to be any newbies. That's the cohort. Once the doors are closed, and you're going to be moving through at a very, very accelerated pace for the new year. So if that resonates for you, click that link that's in the chat box right now. Just check out through the order form. If you have any questions, we will take those a little bit later on. What I want to do now, though, is since we have this very, very rare opportunity with these 3 panelists, I would like to open the floor for questions to them. So if you have any questions about any of the stories that you've heard today or any of the concepts, if you want them to explain anything that they've spoken about, this is your opportunity to really get one-on-one conversation with our panelists. So if you have a question, raise your hand or just let us know in the chat box that you want to be brought on, and then we'll unmute you and you can ask whatever questions you have to any of our panelists. Just give us a little wave if you have a question, or let us know so we can find you. Really? No questions?
I'll break the ice. Oh, Donna wants to go. Zoe, you need to share your angel cards.
All right, Donna.
Thank you. What I would like to know is, number one, how you became aware of Isha, like how you came across that, because I know everyone comes into your life when you're ready for it. And throughout the whole thing, what was your greatest fear? If you could just answer those 2 things for me, please.
Is that to a particular panelist, or do you want to hear it from all of them?
I'd love to hear it from all of them, because all of their stories will be a little bit different, if that's okay.
Yeah, guys, just jump in as you feel fit.
Sorry, what was the first question?
How you became aware of Isha in the first place.
Of Isha. It showed up on my Facebook. So what has happened actually, my grandma had passed away, and my grandma and I was really, really close. And then I was scrolling on Facebook. It was the Lionsgate activation. I'm a Leo, and it was meditation stuff was somewhere there, and I felt like I should start it. It was like, oh yeah, maybe that's something I need to try. And then that came across, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's meditation. Maybe I should try this one. And then like it was Leo, and I'm like, oh, I'm a Leo from like my star sign is a Leo. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should go there. And then it felt like my grandma like was nudging me somehow. And to this day, I'm still convinced that my grandma somehow pushed me into this direction. Then I went there, I met Isha, did the activation, had my first like, oh my God, what's going on here experience. And then I stuck with him. And my greatest fear, I wasn't scared at that point. I think my greatest fear in working with Isha was handing over the money. That was really, really scary for me. And then there was a time where, probably before Isha, where I was connecting to things. They were uncomfortable, and I didn't know what it was, but they scared me. So, and then once I started working with Isha, I opened up more and more, and there was a little bit of fear coming up, where like, oh my God, what if they come back? So there was a situation where I was too scared. I remember that I was lying in my bed and I wanted to get the rubbish out. And I felt like there are all these beings out there, and I was too scared to get the rubbish out. So I turned all the lights on in the house, and I'm like, I'm here. No one can do anything. I'm sitting in the light. And then I remembered actually the teachings like Isha like taught us. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I am the light. And then I slammed the door open with my rubbish, and I'm like, ha! You can't do anything. And I walk like a soldier to the bin, chuck the rubbish out, and I'm like, no one. And I walked back in, and I overcame that. So it was money and like certain energies I was scared of, but yeah, with like the techniques and the discernment, you got the tools to handle that.
Thanks so much, Nina. That was really beautiful. I love your storytelling and the way you do that. The energy is wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Who wants to go next for the same question?
I'm trying to remember how I was led to Isha. It was actually a friend at work, Donna, who led me to Isha. So again, people coming into your life. And interestingly, even though I care for her very deeply, we actually aren't very close anymore. And I feel like in my soul journey, she came in just to guide me to Isha. And then once I was there, she was like, all right, you're good where you are now. I can
story because she I remember she led you to me, and then she dropped out of the course after like the first week, I think. Yeah, so that I found that very interesting. And I was just thinking of her name earlier today, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I never heard from her since. So I just find that so fascinating, you know.
I've actually recently made contact as well, and she's doing really well. I'm really happy for her. She's in a really good place. But yeah, it was interesting that what Donna was saying about people come into your life for a certain reason and things, and definitely I think our friendship was about her, whether it was like a soul contract we had or something, but about her bringing me to Isha, because it was definitely not a world that I was a part of, and I never would have got there myself. And then in terms of the biggest fear to overcome, oh my goodness, I'm a bundle of fear and nerves. Not anymore, but I was at the start. And similar to Nina, obviously money in a 3D world where we're taught to save our pennies and not spend it on and be frivolous with it and things like that. Obviously money comes up for everyone. I mean, if it doesn't, then great, you're like leagues ahead of everyone else. But for most of us, money comes up. But I was also similar in the energies. I think, actually, no, I'll take a step back. My biggest fear has been about shining my light, just in general. I can honestly state that that has been my biggest fear. And when you start doing this work and you do start connecting to yourself, you are flicking on that light switch. And like I said earlier, these energies that if you're starting out and you're unable to discern and things, these lower vibrational energies do come to sort of get you off your path. It is not in their benefit for you to shine your light. So at the start, a lot of fear for me was about shining my light, because I was feeling these energies coming to me and they weren't particularly comfortable. They weren't very nice. But in that, exactly the same revelation as Nina, finally, and I don't know how many times Isha had said to me, you are the light, just hold your light, hold that frequency, and they cannot withstand it. And I was there night after night, you know, terrified, because they always seemed to come to me at night, and something just clicked. There's just literally something, it's like a screw got put in properly or something. And suddenly I thought, you know what, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this fear. And I just let it loose. I just did my heart start meditation. I just shone that light so far out. And I was like, you don't scare me anymore. And the minute I had that revelation, and I had that realization that I am the light and they can't do anything to me, it changed everything. I don't have that fear anymore. They still occasionally will like come just to sort of test the waters, but I think it's funny now, actually. I don't, it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And now I know how to sort of discern and get rid of them as well. So yeah, I think at first it was very much about shining my light. And then now as my journey progresses, it's about shining my light in other ways, right? So speaking my truth, allowing myself to be out there and putting myself out so that, you know, people can come to conclusions about me however they like and being okay with that, you know. So yeah, it's still very much for me about shining my light.
Absolutely beautiful, Zoe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being so honest about that as well. And I know, I mean, again, you know, what I said to Mandy, I'm so proud of you and Nina as well, and you, Zoe, because like I do remember that scared person that walked into the studio, and I recall very distinctly. You remember that time in your house when that light kept turning on and you were freaking out?
Yes, and it wasn't just the light, it was my house alarm. I'd get home from meditation and I was living by myself, and the house alarm would be going off, and it used to terrify me.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, and I know recently you've just started getting into speaking. It was one of the reasons why I invited you today as well, is because I saw that, you've been on a podcast and you're really getting out there in these other ways because you've overcome that fear now. And it is, I mean, I don't want to go too far down this today either, but, stepping up in the public arena is huge. I know Nina's been through this, when she first started putting posts regularly on Facebook. I know Mandy's been through this with her expression and the way she's seen.
Yes.
You're going through this as well, because it's not easy to put yourself out there, especially when your beliefs are so radical, when I started talking about like ETs and like all this stuff, and the first thing you think is, well, what are my immediate friends and family going to think? Like that was the big one for me. It's like, what are my parents going to think? What are my uni friends going to think? What are my high school friends going to think? What are my siblings going to think? And it's like all that kind of stuff. And then eventually overcoming that and going, well, again, it's like, if you are the light, well, the light has to shine. I don't think you can ever dim it for too long. It gets to a point where it's uncomfortable to be dim, that you kind of just have to explode. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mandy, over to you.
I shared the story about it. My story will be easy about Isha meeting. She sent me a postcard. I was part of a regular.
It was actually an outreach. Yeah, that was one of the few instances.
Yeah, it was an outreach. She did outreach. They found me, and I was one of like 50 people or something, but probably I just think that's really interesting too. I don't know how many postcards you sent, but like, it's not like everybody needed to convert. Like, you send the scatter shot, and then wherever it needs to really land and connect, it does. I mean, yeah, I mean, what kind of person be like, I think I'm going to send one postcard in the world, and it's to this random entrepreneur I've never met, but that's the one. And then I'm like, oh, this is the one. Like, it was really, really cool.
I can now share, from my perspective, how that creation happened as well, because you were the first person that I worked with at that very high level, very closely one-on-one, and at that price point. I'd never sold anything at that price point before. And so the way that I manifested it, I was doing all sorts of things in the background, energetically, in a heart, like all these different things. And out of those 50 postcards that we sent, you were the first person to respond. And the whole team was actually blown away at how quickly it came in, because I was working with an agency at the time, and they were doing this for multiple other clients, like sourcing. And so I basically gave them like my criteria of the kind of person I wanted to work with. And straight away, my cards went out the door, boom, response comes back, call, booked in. You were the first person I ever pitched that program to, so even from my perspective, the way the manifestation happened was, it was just so aligned. And I don't think I think since you and I started working together, I've only offered that particular program to one other person. So, I think there was like a real divine alignment in the way that it happened, because I myself haven't even offered that program. And this for such a long time. Like, when I work with a client one-on-one, I really only ever do that with one or two people at a time. It's very in-depth. It's very, it's a very high level of mentorship. And also it's a very high level of energetic commitment on my part. And so once you were in, I really felt like that was all I wanted to do. I didn't want to take on a whole bunch of extra clients at that same level. And so it was two-way. It was mutual, it was like, I found you, you found me. And it was just like so perfect how it lined up, and how quickly it happened as well. Because I didn't go through 10 other sales calls to find you. You were literally the first person I spoke with.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that piece of it, but it was very intentional the whole way through. I know on both sides. And I remember on mine, I felt the gravity of it from. So there was another piece of that I kind of wanted to share too, but it's late here, and I'm literally noticing my brain is a little bit foggy. But my biggest fear, I really resonated with what Zoe said about the shining your light, but that's actually only happened very recently, because I am like kind of stages behind in time. Like, this is still unfolding, like pieces that you've experienced, I think, earlier in time than me, and different depths in different places, etc., very unique. But I think that for me, the boundaries was a huge piece, like earlier on, and Isha was witness to this throughout our work together. She would often comment like, it seems like we end up talking about other people a lot, as in like challenges that I'm having asserting boundaries. It was like emotional turmoil that I was going through because of relationships that were experiencing challenges. And it's because I don't think I would have put it into these words, but I was trying so hard to hold those relationships together because I think there were commitments that were made, and there were like verbal promises that were made that to the depth of the relationship, what it meant, what it was about, what we were committed to. And then it was really devastating for me to see. It took a long time for me to see that like what I meant by those words might be coming back to me in a different way, that ultimately, no matter how hard I would try, I like could not sustain. And so as I worked through a lot of those pieces, it was just, that was a huge fear. Like it was just so, it came through more like pain to me, like just excruciating pain to like turn away from, or like really what felt to me like giving up on relationships that just were no longer aligned. And then ultimately, finally, like getting clarity that that was just really about just letting them go. And that has been ongoing now for quite some time, but it's become easier and easier and easier. And so very recently, the like shining of my light has really, like I got a huge hit on this yesterday, like very, very, just an incredible breakthrough on kind of like reaching that point of unwillingness to continue to shrink or compromise. And because it's interesting, because it's not like anybody else can really do that to you. You're literally doing it to yourself. I don't know if that's absolute, or I don't know if maybe Zoe, would you agree with that? Like nobody else can actually dim your light. You actually choose to participate according, you're following their dynamics rather than setting the dynamic. And
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, getting clear on that and like actually behaving differently. I have a very strong like vomit reaction. Like I want to puke. It could be like an all day thing, or it could be like, it's just really difficult sometimes to work through those layers. But then when you do, it's really, really rewarding. Not there yet, but I definitely seeing more progress, accelerating lately.
I love it. Beautiful. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and we have a question from Steph. So Steph actually is in the 5D Empire already. She's just started doing the inner heart practice a couple of weeks ago when he just introduced it to the whole group as a cohort. And so her question for the panelists is, what is your best tip in the practice?
In the heart, in the inner heart.
Yep.
Discern. If something doesn't feel right, discern until you find out what it truly is, because I think in my inner heart, that was the best practice that I had, was shining that inner heart light out to discern what energies were coming, because it's your inner heart. You're going to be working through some shit. Like there's going to be stuff in there. And I also found that my guides stood back a little bit. So guides that I had discerned, who absolutely were who they were almost teaching me a lesson and getting me to trust myself instead of looking to them for the answers. So yeah, really getting into that practice of discerning and like finding your trust with your guidance when you discern. That's been the best practice for me.
Beautiful. Who wants to go next?
I can go. I think, the best tip will be, and it might be a little bit disappointing because you want me to go into the inner heart and give you something, but the greatest tip I could give you is commitment. Like set a time and do it every single day. like every single day. There were times in my life, I used to work at the airport, and I had shifts that started at 4 a.m. So I didn't want to get up at 2 a.m. to do the meditation. No way in the world. Like, I wanted to sleep. But I set my alarm and I got up and I did it anyway. And, my alarm rang and I was like, oh, no way. But I made the promise to myself and I did it every single day. And everything else, like, I think every other practice within your inner heart will teach you. Your inner heart, exactly like Zoe says, like all of a sudden my guide is standing back. It's your inner heart teaching you the practice. You can go in there with so much intention and you want to do things. I wanted to know who's my twin flame, and I wanted to go into my inner heart and I'm like, who's my twin flame? And I did that for like a year or so. And and I'm asking Ashira, I'm like, Ashira, who's my twin flame? Tell me who's my twin flame. Who is it? And he's just laughing and laughing. And I'm like, oh. So and then I gave up. And I kind of have a twin flame connection with Ashira. So that's why he was standing there laughing. Yeah. Very funny, very funny. I'm feeling laughing now. But your inner heart is teaching you. Your inner heart is teaching you. All you need to do is you need to show up for yourself. Like, you have to say yes to yourself in the very first moment, and then you keep saying yes to yourself every single day, regardless if you're tired, regardless if it's cold outside, or whatever other excuse you come up with. It's saying yes, and that's the best practice I can recommend.
Yeah, the twin flame thing's hilarious. You guys watched me go through that for years, right? And eventually when I realized, I was like, man, yeah. And Ashira is one of the funniest, he's one of the funniest beings. Like, I see him, Ashira to me is like that, the funny
Joker.
old uncle. Yeah, exactly. He's such a joker. Like, he is. If you think you're gonna go in there and be all like serious and whatever, and you guys are just looking at you like they totally get the cosmic joke, right? They just they put you in your inner heart and you sit there like, I'm gonna work on myself and I'm gonna do all these things and I'm gonna like build a business, and they're just like, can you just like relax? They're like, can you just enjoy your life? Which I love, and I think you guys touched on something really important there as well. I think both of you, Zoe and Nina, have mentioned it at some point today, which is that, like, I helped you guys to learn the practice and to get through the gateway, right? Like, through the door to the inner heart, and I taught you guys what was in there. But there came a point for each of you, and I know Mandy's now experiencing this now as well, is that your guides and your inner heart took it from there. And that's what I said from day one. I said, give yourself the first year or so to really learn the practice, and then after that, run with it. And Zoe, you never even did the second year of origin activation, and still you ran with the practice. And because you've gone and done like all the actual, the practical component of sitting there and doing the work, it's why you're still able to connect to all the frequencies at that same level, and I see that and I recognize it about you. I know that you only ever did levels 1 and 2, and yet you're still on this panel alongside, Mandy and Nina, because you've continued the work in your own time, right? And I think that's the most important thing, is like any guide or mentor will show you how to get there, but you still have to walk the path. And you guys are here because you walked the path. Even after the mentorship finished, you guys continued every single day to do the work, and it was your guides and your heart space that ultimately led you. And I think that for me is where I find my highest joy. And I said this to Mandy, it was one of the biggest reasons Mandy signed up with me. I said, Mandy, after 2 years, you're never going to need me again. We were crying the other day on our last session because we've had such a great 2 years together, but I don't need to coach Mandy anymore. She's done. She's got it. I'm like, off you go. She's going to spread her wings and fly. And I think that's the bit that really lights me up the most, is like, I don't want to have to mentor somebody for the next decade. But I'm giving you an opportunity now to get your foot in the door. And I think that's the piece where you need to take that action. Yes, Zoe?
I think, sorry to just jump in here, but exactly what you're saying there. When you say that I think I got up to whatever level I did, I only stopped because of what you had already taught me, right? You taught me to trust myself. So when my guidance changed, I was able to understand that and go, you know what, actually my pathway is this way now. Like, this is the way I meant to go. And you had given me the tools to be able to do that, to be able to trust myself. And I would love to, Isha, I'd love to be back and like learning under you again and doing all of those things. But this is the way I was meant to go. And it's been great. You know,
and you've done it, you've done the work. At the end of the day, it's like you've done the work. You know, some people stay with me for 2 or 3 years, some people do like 7 months and decide that's enough. And I think as long as people get that to that point where they can make that decision, that in and of itself is so empowering, you know. And I think, you know, in the coaching industry, there's a lot of like people kind of abuse that power. It's like you have to re-sign year after year after year after year, and they keep telling you why you're not good enough. And I'm just like, no, guys, please take everything I've given you and run with it. And you guys have, you know, and that's what I love so much.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that like you gave me the tools to be able to trust myself so fully that I could, you know, turn when I needed to pivot. That's, I mean, that in itself is worth every cent.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Did all three of you answer that question? I feel like, was there
Mandy.
Mandy, right. I lost track, derailed a little.
Well, I'm the example on the panel that did not really do the work. And it's like, I was committed, but it was like, I didn't put the time in early on. So I think that's a huge reason why some of my pieces came in later. And I think that kind of makes me laugh as well, because I know the reasons for that also, but then you see the fruit somehow. And my suggestion is, that was, I guess, a total detour, but my recommendation on a tip is actually to petition for guidance. So I think things really changed when I was very emphatic and clear that I was waiting for answers. And it wasn't like a specific answer to some certain question that I wanted to ask, like an oracle. It was like, I'm ready to hear. Like, I'm ready to see. I'm ready to know for myself. I'm listening. And I'll be listening as long as it takes for me to like get that message. And it was like immediate. Because the groundwork and the tools were in place. I had already established so much groundwork, but it was almost like I had to give the permission for that to come through, or actually like state, I'm ready. And so that was extremely helpful for me, because yeah, it was just a huge turning point that happened in Australia.
It's, I don't want to sort of counter what you said, because your experience is your experience, but at the same time, honestly, my experience of you, Mandy, was you actually did do the work all the way through, and we were
Thank you
so much. And I just want to acknowledge that. I know some of the multidimensional pieces really didn't come in for you.
I beat myself up. It's bad sometimes.
But that was never my impression of you. I mean, my impression of you was, I mean, you were a dream to work with. Like, you absolutely showed up to every call, even when you were tired, even when it was difficult, even when you had financial struggles, even when you had all these other dramas going on with other stuff. And we did spend time, you know, going through those things. But I saw your tenacity to show up for yourself. And, you know, on the one hand, you're saying, well, yeah, I feel like I didn't really do the work. And I think for you, your journey was that some of the, you know, the higher level stuff really didn't happen for you until the second year, which happens for quite a lot of clients as well. Like, it's quite normal. But you still showed up. And I think it's that consistency piece, which Zoë and Nina touched on as well. Is like, you just kept showing up. And because of that, eventually in your own timing, when your soul was ready, and I know the Australia trip played a big role in that for you as well, it really did unfold. And when it did, it was like, it skyrocketed. Like, you went from 0 to 100 over like a week, you know. but don't underestimate the power of that 18 months of groundwork that allowed you to do that.
Yeah, it's just so fun to like, it's so fun and rewarding to reflect on such precious memories and experiences.
I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to each and every, firstly, the panelists for showing up. They've all volunteered their time here today because they care about the mission and the vision, and ultimately we're all working together for the same thing. I think over the course of working together, each of us have realized we have such a strong, soul connection that even when, like, I haven't really spoken to Nina and Zoe in a while since the last event, and yet it feels like it's just coming back, like we've never left. And so I have the deepest level of love and gratitude for each of these students, and even to you, Jody, and to all the other 5D Empire members that are here today as well. Ultimately, the work is happening because you guys are here. I know that I show up every day and I'm willing to teach, and I'm creating these opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that ultimately the ascension is happening because of each and every one of you. And so I do just want to finish off with a lot of love and gratitude. And I will give the panelists a final word each as well. I just want to put that link up again. So for anyone who does want to continue or start that journey with us in the next 12 months, like I said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I guarantee that by the time we finish this cohort at the end of 2023, the program will relaunch at a 5-figure price point. That's just the reality of how it's going to be. So if you're feeling that inner pulling to really start this work now and access everything that these ladies have been talking about, this is your one opportunity to start now, but also start it at probably what's the lowest price point I've ever offered it in my life. So we're going to pop that link in the chat box. And we're also, my assistants just asked can we all smile for a photo? And can we do a little screenshot before we hop off today? So everyone wants to just smile. Yes, all good. I love it. Thank you, Michonne. Okay, so I would just like to finish by giving each of the panelists just the floor again, just for a quick, 30 to 60 seconds, just to wrap up if there's any final words any of you guys want to say today.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. It's been absolutely wonderful. I can't believe it's been 2 hours already. It feels like no time at all, but that's when you're in alignment, right? So thank you all so much.
Mm-hmm. Second.
Yeah,
that.
thank you. You go first.
Okay, second that. This has been extremely fun and just very special. So thank you for pulling this together, Isha. The minute you asked, I was looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I can third that it's beautiful to be here. It's so beautiful to see you guys and share the story and hopefully maybe inspire someone to take some action. That would be amazing because it's another world waiting on for you. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing space with us.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for showing up today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the mission. So with that said, let's wrap it up. If the panelists can just stay on a little bit once everybody leaves. To the rest of you, have an amazing holidays. And if you're joining us for your journey, I'm really excited to see you in the 5D Empire. It's going to be a wild 12 months. All right, sending you love. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.